Welcome to the Mindfulness Academy Podcast. I'm your host, Amy Morgan. And on today's show, we have Kevin Bailey. Welcome to the show, Kevin.
Thanks, Amy. Great to be on.
Well, it's been a long time coming. We've been very excited to have you. We've talked about you on a number of podcasts, and today
Awesome.
is the day. So I'm going to
Let's go.
introduce you and let's dig into it.
All right.
Kevin Bailey is the co-founder and CEO of Dreamfuel, a mental performance coaching platform for winning teams. Dreamfuel's coaching has empowered thousands of high-performing executives and salespeople to achieve challenging goals. Kevin is a three-time Inc. 500 tech founder and is currently completing his master's in applied neuroscience. Welcome.
Thank you, Amy. Happy to be on.
Oh, I'm so happy to have you here. And we're going to start like I normally do, how we met. So this is the trivia. And I was thinking back, and the only thing I can think of is probably the one and the only Erin Slater. I think she's the one who kept saying, talk to Kevin.
Yeah. Was there?
And how do you know Kevin? Or how do you know Erin? I can't remember.
Man, Erin and I used to talk about her son a little bit. And I think she came to some mindfulness workshops that I was leading around COVID and meditated a little bit with me. And just kind of I just kind of put them out on LinkedIn to anyone. I think she showed up. I think that's how we met. But since then, we've formed a nice relationship, and she is an awesome person.
She really is. She actually was at the very beginning of my mindfulness journey as well. And so all roads seem to start with her. A lot of roads seem to start with her. So we'll give a shout out to her. We recently had her on the show. And so if
Awesome.
you haven't seen that, it's a pretty great conversation. I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about you. Where'd you grow up? What's your educational background?
Okay. I grew up in Naperville, Illinois, a little south of Chicago, and moved to Indiana when I was a freshman in high school. Went to Zionsville High School, then went to college at Indiana University. Majored in business, the Kelley School of Business. Came out of there with a finance and accounting degree, and started working downtown Chicago as a intellectual property strategist, working on large lawsuits, patent infringements, stuff like that. That was how I got started. Far from where I am now.
So what was the bridge? What took you from there to three high growth companies?
I will answer this honestly, I guess. Um, so I was working at a pretty prestigious management consulting company. Won't put the name out there. And we worked really long hours, and people made really good money. I was pretty money motivated back then. And I remember one day I was looking at the senior leaders of that company. These were the partners that made big money. I just, from my interactions with them, the only way I could describe it to myself back then is like they were a little soulless. Sounds kind of judgmental, but I was like, I don't know if I want to be like these people. So I was an associate there, and I quit that job, and I came back to Indianapolis to live with my parents for a little while and kind of get my head together. And that was when I ran into two of my friends from high school that we used to build websites with, and we started Slingshot, which was my first high growth technology company. And yeah, that was kind of off to the races, going from kind of a finance guy to a CEO, and then learned from that journey just what that adventure looks like, and started to move in the direction of mindfulness and mental performance.
So what was Slingshot?
Yeah, so Slingshot ultimately turned into Relevance before we exited from that company. But yeah, Slingshot was just a MarTech company, distributed workforce model focused on search marketing and content marketing.
All right. And then you sold that one. Then you got into round two.
Yeah, second company that I helped found really was a transition from a company called Verge to Powder Keg, but my buddy Matt Hunkler ran a tech community, and it was called Verge, and I helped him transition that to a more nationally focused company called Powder Keg. Matt's a good friend of mine, and that was where I saw. I didn't mention this, but the journey at Slingshot from This is one of the companies that had was a fastest grower. It was a fastest growing company in Indianapolis, where I'm from, in 2011. To date this a little bit, but yeah, that company put me through my paces. Once we were up around 120, 130 employees, I was kind of like out of my swim lane a little bit as a 27-year-old CEO co-founder. Um, and that was some of the stuff where I met a neuroscientist by the name of Dr. Diane Powell and a mindfulness coach by the name of Richard Neat, who was a former Vietnam fighter pilot. And they both taught me their respective tools for showing up as a leader. And that was where I got the interest in this stuff. And then when I went to Powder Keg, helped Matt kind of rebrand the Powder Keg and build a more nationally focused company, which he's still working on and doing an awesome job with. I noticed that the mental performance, mindset, mindfulness issues that I was dealing with as a leader at Slingshot were pretty much all over the place for tech leaders. I mean, seemed like a pandemic before the pandemic to me. So I told Matt, I was like, how passionate I am about this stuff. After I worked with him on Powder Keg for a while, I said, I think I need to go a solution for the pain and challenges that I'm seeing here, among these founders and executives of these high growth technology companies. So that was when I decided to go found Dreamfuel.
And I will interject and say, Matt is amazing. I've followed his work for a very long time, and he is someone who achieved quite a bit of success early on, like yourself. I think I was just seeing this last week. He was 40 under 40 here in
Mhm.
Indianapolis at what, 23 or something. I mean, he
Yeah.
looks like a
He
child
was
in that
actually he was
photo.
actually he was with me at Slingshot around that time. So we
Okay.
worked together at Slingshot, and then when he went full time on Verge, I jumped over there with him.
Okay. I didn't realize that transition. Okay. Very good. And then,
Yeah,
so you
we hired
sold,
him out of the Orr Fellowship. So Orr Fellowship's just something that's in Indiana for high performing, college students.
and so Powder Keg is still going. So you're still part of that,
Yep.
at least to
Yeah, I'm
some
gonna be
extent.
doing I'll be doing I don't know when this is gonna go out, but on March 5th, we're gonna be doing some workshops for executives on visualization there, before their May 5th event. Sorry, March 5th event.
Excellent. And now it's Dreamfuel. Is this number three, or is there one in between?
Yeah, this is really number three. There was a company that I helped start with the one of the mental health professionals, including Diane Powell, back around the Slingshot time period, where I was sort of like their marketing guy, and that was to help parents of autistic children parent better using some of these tools. So that was my first entry point into this stuff, was with autistic children and their parents, which is like glaring example of the need for these tools. And then I was like, this is just as applicable for business. Maybe not as direly needed, but still very needed.
So why autistic children? Why did you choose that?
Like I said, yeah, the neuroscientist and another mental health professional I was working with back then who were teaching me some of this stuff that I was kind of taking in as leaders. They were like, um, they were focused on autism, and
Nice.
specifically how you help parents of autistic children parent better using some of these tools. And it was just incredibly fascinating because we don't need to go deep down this tangent, but
Go
but
for it. We're flowing.
basically, basically, and the utmost of appreciation and empathy for that journey for those who have it. They were focused on nonverbal autistic children and those families, and very hard situations. One of the challenges that they were dealing with is that nonverbal autistic children are incredibly sensitive. So you think about our senses, our five senses. Often for autistic children, especially nonverbal, their senses are so acute. A light can feel like a blazing sun. Clothes, that have like fibers that are maybe a little bit that we might notice, feel like sandpaper. And other sensitivities. I mean, Diane specifically was looking at the empathetic capabilities of those children. And while they may not be able to express them, and I'm not an expert at autism. I mean, I do study a little bit in my master's program, but there's people who are well beyond me. I was a marketing guy on this, but anyway, these children, to sum it up, were very sensitive to the way their parents felt about them. Even though they couldn't say in words, they were very sensitive. And we trained the parents to show up differently for their children so that their children would have less propensity to have outbursts and cause major parenting challenges using mindfulness tools and mindset tools. And it was beautiful to see how those parents would change their relationships with their children when they started becoming more mindful and understanding that maybe their children couldn't express themselves verbally, but that they could still communicate through their energy, so to speak. And it was cool. It's like
Did you
it was like tuning them together, and kind of, yeah. But again, I was just the marketing guy, but these were two mental health professionals that specialized in that.
And at the end of the day, though, you applied the essence of what you learned there to Dreamfuel and all the rest of the companies that
Yeah,
you still
exactly.
touch.
Look at how effective this is at helping these relationships. Like, what if executives are sensitive to their teams like this? What if, we use these tools on sales calls to be more sensitive to how our buyers were responding non-verbally, through even on a call like this? And it just kind of like light bulbs went off, and I was like, I remember talking to Marcy, who was the other mental health professional who was on that. I was like, I think this stuff would be really helpful in business. And she was like, "You're damn right." And I was like, "Okay. Well, I'm doing this stuff for myself and I'm showing up differently as a leader. And my friends are asking me what changed. And I'm talking to them about this." And then it was like, kind of like one of those miracle moments or synchronicities of just people started being like, "Can you do this for my team? Can you do this for my team? Can you do this for my team?" And I started doing it even before Powder Keg, kind of as I was transitioning out of Slingshot Relevance. I started just doing this on like a little contract basis for different companies and seeing miraculous results, particularly with sales teams in the beginning. It was great to see how this stuff worked. You know, little stuff. This stuff's in vogue now to some extent. Breathing exercises and whatnot. You see athletes doing all over the time. At that time, it was weird. I'd sit down with them and be like, "Hey, like let's try a breathing exercise before you jump on this sales call, and let's kind of see how that makes you perform." And they would close the deal, and they'd be like, "I'm breathing before every call." It was like, it was kind of like Wild West of this stuff back then.
Well, that's good to apply. And you're still coaching sales teams now, right?
Yep.
Through Dreamfuel.
Yeah,
So
I mean,
that is
Dreamfuel's grown a lot, and we have many different tools now. 52 of them we teach specifically. But yeah, that was the inception. Now it's more kind of like, yeah, I mean, it's a going concern.
a going concern. You said 52 things. I did not realize it was that robust. I'm wondering if you could talk to me through a couple of questions here. What are some of the common issues clients come to you with? What are they facing? And what are some of those tools? Paint a picture for us.
Yeah. So at its highest level, our objective is to help teams and individuals stay in high performance states. A lot of times people call that flow state, call it being in the zone, high productivity states. Those are easy to understand when you're in or out of one of those states. You can liken them to quadrants within what we call the performance zones. You've probably heard of fight or flight. There's actually 4 of them, and fight is very different from flight. You got fight where it's dopamine and noradrenaline are typically the neurochemicals and hormones that are running. Dopamine molecule motivation, noradrenaline energy and effort molecule. Those two combined, it's like let's go conquer the world. Let's go. That's dopamine and noradrenaline. And then you have flight, which is obviously runaway, flight response, run away from an attacking predator. That's typically a cocktail of like cortisol and adrenaline. And so you have the stress hormone, and then you have the another effort molecule. It's very close to noradrenaline, but a little different, a little more painful. And You walk up to somebody and you inject them with cortisol and adrenaline. Doesn't matter if they're having the best day of their life. They are going to find every single thing that's wrong with it and want to get out of that situation. They've done that in lab studies. Um, and so that's fight and flight, two different states of consciousness, both sympathetic responses, so heightened heart rate, but one is very active, one's get out of here. Then you have freeze, and you have what we call focus, which some people call rest and digest. Freeze is a combination of acetylcholine, which slows the heart down. And then you have cortisol, the stress hormone again. So you think of it as quadrants, lower right. And that is procrastination. It's a spectrum, all the way to I can't speak or stage fright. Um, and it's because you got a slow heart rate and the stress hormone's going. So executives are in freeze a lot. They're in flight a lot. And then the bottom left is everybody's favorite, which is kind of like that beautiful losing track of time kind of, I don't know, listening to music, doing spreadsheet work for hours, and just kind of like for whatever reason getting into it. For those who like spreadsheet work,
That'd
but
be me. What's that one
yeah,
called?
we call that focus, but a lot of times they call that rest and digest, which is
Okay.
just a combination of like serotonin and acetylcholine. So the heart's a little slower. It's a parasympathetic response, so a more chill nervous system, and then serotonin, which is kind of like a nice happiness molecule. So you're always in one of those four states. The fight and focus we would call them adaptive states that are good for executives to be in that band. And then you have on the stress side, you got flight and freeze. Those are maladaptive. In those states, your IQ goes down, so you're not as intelligent because blood normally is not flowing to the brain; it's flowing elsewhere, limbs to run away. And then you are burning energy, especially in flight response, just sitting there needlessly burning energy. So a lot of overwhelm, a lot of exhaustion. So generally, our job is to help people identify those states and get out of those states into more adaptive, positive states. And the tools that we use move people around in that grid so that they can at will go, okay, I'm in a flight response right now. So awareness, mindfulness. I'm in a flight response right now. I feel like I'm being eaten by a bear. And I'm going to choose to put myself in focus right now because I do have to do this spreadsheet analysis before I get into my executive meeting. Or I feel like I'm in freeze. I don't want to get out of bed, but I got an hour. I'm going to be rallying the team to go do a very important initiative. And if it doesn't go well, it could be, the demise of the quarter. So I'm going to go from freeze into fight, and I'm going to ramp myself fully up, and I'm going to rock that meeting. Yeah. So you asked about tools. So I don't
Could
know
I
what my
ask a
favorite.
question before you go
Yeah.
on?
Sure.
Burnout is a big topic.
Mhm.
Where does that fall? Does that fall cleanly within one of those four areas?
Yeah. I mean, burnout's easily associated with flight and freeze.
Okay.
I mean, you could say if somebody's in fight constantly, they're going to get burnout as well. Sympathetic response. But yeah, the big ones are flight and freeze that lead to burnout. They're maladaptive states. They're catabolic. They're destructive to the nervous system. I mean, they have their reason. I mean, they were built for a reason. They were inked in the jungle, so to speak. But if you're not being attacked and your life's not on the line, flight response is not incredibly useful. Same with freeze. So help executives identify those states, get out of those states, and get into the states that are more likely for them to be in flow state, be in the zone, and persevere during trials and tribulation.
Let's talk about these tools.
Sure. Um, yeah, I mean, so like I said, the tools that we teach are used to help executives get out of those maladaptive states. So there's a wide spectrum of tools, and they classify across ones that affect thinking, so cognition, ones that affect emotions, so the core bodily sensations that produce the way you feel. So some affect feelings, and then some affect physiology. So we call that like the performance chain.
Okay.
So they work at different levels. So for example, if an executive is, say they're in a meeting, or say it's a salesperson, he's on a call, or an executive with an investor. The investor's like, hey, I need you to do this really uncomfortable thing that you're not gonna like, and and I need you to do it next quarter and have fun. Um, that obviously is going to put that executive in a flight response. And the unfortunate thing in flight response is that their IQ is going to go down. They're going to burn a bunch of energy, and they might just respond in a way that's not going to make the investor feel heard or understood, or it's going to potentially damage the relationship. So a tool in that situation is to do a little bit of progressive muscle relaxation on the stomach, since the vagus nerve is down there. So an example is just like relax. So right when you hear that, and that's, we like to habituate these responses. You don't have to think about it. I do it automatically. It takes practice, but like first thing when you hear something you don't want to hear is relax the stomach. So that helps the body stay in a parasympathetic response. And then so that's working at the physiological level, relaxing the stomach.
I
And then
like
the
that.
next thing I might do is layer a cognitive reframe on top of it. So changing the thinking. So I might say something myself in my own head, a reframe, like best thing that could have happened. And that even though, it's obviously not, it doesn't feel like it's good at that point, you go, okay, there's a lesson in here, something I'm going to learn. You say best thing could have happened. That kind of turns the cortisol spigot off a little bit, and sort of, even though the body might and the brain might be like, oh my God, I can't believe he wants me to do this. Um, it's like, okay, something's good going to come of this. And really the point of those two physiological, changes right there, and sorry, physiological and cognitive changes there, is so that when you sit there for a second and process the information, you don't go into a panic response, and you're able to intelligently respond and maybe push back or say, well, can I have some time to think about this, or give a more witty response than if you go into the flight response. And now, with like mirror neurons, mirroring each other, it's like all exactly what the investor thought. The executive goes into panic and just lashes back out at them and just damages the relationship. In the case where those two little tools are used in that instance, he's able to or he or she is able to show up with an more open-hearted, open-minded, you know, and respond intelligently. And then say, so that's called, we call that holding form. So it's like you have warm-ups you do on the day, mental fitness warm-ups. You have holding form, in the moment, can you keep yourself together? And then we have cool downs. So tools across those three bands as well. But yeah, I mean, the next day, maybe she does a visualization to see herself having a productive conversation with that investor, and maybe stressing the points that are important to her about what that investor was asking them to do, and nails that meeting because they pre-rehearsed it using rehearsal visualization. So just kind of an example of a scenario where you'd use these tools.
I love that. The two-pronged approach. I even felt like when we were talking, a lot of times when I sit somewhere and I'm trying to ingest a lot of information, I'll notice that I'll even stop breathing. It's crazy. I don't know how my brain keeps functioning, but it does somehow. But just
Well,
that
that's the thing.
moment.
The stopping breathing is the inception of a sympathetic response, or getting into flight or freeze. So what I should have said there is relax the stomach and take a breath.
Okay. Yes.
And that
And
that would keep you in something of a parasympathetic response. And then you throw the cognitive reframe on top of it to just even it all out. Yeah.
it just feels nice to relax the stomach.
Yeah.
It's amazing just what that one little practice does. You mentioned visualization, and that is a common theme I know in your life, in your business, in your training. Let's talk about visualization and how it relates to mindfulness. So tell me about why visualization is so important to you, why it seems to be at the forefront.
I love visualization. It is one of my favorite things in the world. Um, because it is a creator's tool. Um, Somebody who desires to create good in the world, desires to create the life of their dreams, it is the tool to master if you want to be good at creating. If you want to live in a world of scarcity and victimization and all those things, that the environment totally controls me, visualization isn't helpful in those situations for people who run their life like that. But if you run your life as a creator and you want to create your own destiny, um, manifestation, so to speak, but it's so much beyond the metaphysical. There's so much science around it at this point. It is a beautiful tool for taking control of your free will and doing what you want to do in life.
So visualization is really just kind of, would you say it's rehearsing in your head something that you want to see happen, something you want to create?
Yeah, it can be short term, like the next meeting. It can be a performance on the field, which is well studied, called rehearsal visualization, or it could be tuning your mind and psychology and physiology to accomplish, a 10-year mission, or a 20-year mission, or whatever. It is. I've been using it. I used it unknowingly when I was younger, before I knew what it was and how it functioned, and then I obviously learned the science and started just getting super geeked out on it later in life. But most of the things that I've created in my life, the good ones, I have had a period where I either, yeah, just spontaneously sat down and took a peek at the future. A lot of people, I don't know what it is about me, or maybe it was how I was raised or something my dad told me, I don't know. But um, most people use the capacity of their imagination to see how things are going to go wrong, and then kind of try and figure out, okay, I'm going to be late to this meeting. Well, everybody's going to hate me, and then I'm going to feel like an idiot. Da, 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 da. And they start just cascading all these negative neurotransmitters and hormones into their body because they see how things can go bad. I've always had an inclination, I don't know why, to see how things could go good. And for the founding of my first company, I remember I was with my future business partners, and we were laughing, having a few beers at my friend's house, and we mentioned, hey, the stuff that we were doing back in high school, in search marketing is really taking a foothold right now with content marketing and things like that. And we could probably build something really cool. And I remember, and my buddies were like, and yeah, Kevin, like you're like the, big shot Chicago finance guy, like you could be CEO. And I remember that was when my excitement dropped. And I was like, I don't know if I want to be CEO of a company, you know? And I remember just kind of like the mood, which was really high because we were conceiving an idea, dropped. And I remember I walked out of my friend's house that day, and I sat down on the curb late at night. I just kind of closed my eyes, and I just said, "What if?" And I started to see, us building a technology company, and I saw us, I can still remember it. I saw us looking at like dashboards and Excel sheets, like the exponential growth. And I remember like imagining leading people, talking to large groups of team members, and I started to get excited. And then I was thinking about the things I cared about back then, fast cars and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I'm gonna get a Viper and all these things, as cheesy as that might sound. Um, I love cars, and and I remember just filling myself with this feeling of confidence and joy. And I went home that night, and I opened up a Word document. And I wrote what's called the prologue to our business plan, which was just my opinion on how the marketing landscape was evolving, and why what we were going to do was going to be so needed. And that was the inception of that company. And we ended up pretty much manifesting most of what we wanted. We never got the massive exit we wanted. We almost sold the company for 60 million, and we ended up kind of selling it for much less after a challenging diligence process with a buyer, where we started missing our sales forecast. But it was so I wish I would have visualized the end of it, but pretty much everything I saw happened. And I remember when I started talking to Diane and others about visualization later, it's like, wow, I did see all that stuff before it happened. It's like, that's crazy. And then, yeah, so many personal stories I could get into. Like, I had a visualization where I saw my future wife, Ashley, current wife, of 10 years, but saw that in a visualization, spontaneous visualization, other things like that, super personal and business related. It's just been a tool I've used over and over again. And now that I know the science of it, it's a great tool.
So is it kind of like tricking the brain a bit, or just what is it that makes visualization work? I mean, one thing that I've been thinking about is when I visualize, it's kind of like trying on clothes that I know I want to wear later, and it's like I've seen it before, so it's almost like an expectation of seeing it again, um, and that it wouldn't be a surprise.
Yeah. Well,
It's
I'm happy to, yeah, so that makes you
yeah,
makes you more confident. I'm happy to jump into some of the science related to it and how it works.
yeah. Let's hear it. I'm curious because it's crazy how
Yeah,
much it works.
it is. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful tool gifted to us by the universe. Um, so the imagination's super powerful. Subconscious mind, incredibly powerful. Issue with the subconscious mind. It has a very tough time distinguishing between what is really happening and what is well imagined.
For good or
Conscious
for bad.
mind, yeah, conscious mind, well aware that you're using your imagination or not. Subconscious mind would appear that it reacts like what you're imagining is actually happening, especially in dreams, right? Um, so that's like a little quirk of the subconscious. So when we close our eyes, and we visualize something happening, it doesn't matter whether you're visualizing rocketing to the moon or selling your company or meeting the love of your life. Uh, that subconscious mind which controls your whole nervous system, will have the body react like it's actually happening. So it'll let all the neurotransmitters and hormones go that would actually happen in the situation of doing what you're visualizing. So you visualize selling your company, which we do a lot with executives. You visualize selling your company, you're going to flood your nervous system with tons of dopamine, tons of serotonin, oxytocin, all the feel good stuff, you know. And the other piece of science that's important to understand is when you release all this, which feels great in the nervous system, that incepts a bunch of neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity is driven by emotion.
Tell us what
So yeah,
neuroplasticity is.
neuroplasticity is just the scientific way of saying, changes in the brain, creation of memory.
Okay.
Um, so basically, as you're running all these positive neurotransmitters, or negative if you're visualizing something bad, the brain starts to create a memory, and a powerful one. The more you feel an emotion, the stronger the neuroplasticity is. So it's called long-term potentiation of synapses, which is just like the frequency at which the synapses fire in this neural network that's being created of this memory. If you think about the things that are easiest to remember, it's always the most traumatic events in your life and the most elation, or the most joyous, are the easiest to remember. That's because the degree of emotion you create is what creates the power of those neural networks. Like PTSD is just a really traumatic event, lots of neuroplasticity, very high frequency firing of those neurons in that memory. So your brain's always drawn to it. It's kind of like sucking energy through it in your brain, electrochemical energy. But anyway, yeah, so the neuroplasticity is profound with visualization if you can do it well and really that's why I always say, even, in metaphysical circles, you hear like, you got to feel it. So the science is very clear, like you do have to feel it, um, and that'll create the memory. And that memory of the future. So whether it's a sport performance thing you're trying to do the next day, or you're visualizing selling your company in a decade, uh, you get the emotion up, meaning you do the visualization well and you feel it. It's gonna be there, and it creates, I like to call it like a self-fulfilling prophecy, so to speak. The subconscious wants to affirm your beliefs.
Hmm.
So now you've created a belief that you're going to sell your company, a strong belief you're going to sell your company. Okay. And it's sitting there. And there's something called the reticular activating system, the RAS, and it's a primal part of the brain that basically guides us places or helps us make decisions. It's a filters out information that might be in alignment, filters in information because your subconscious can only look at, well, your subconscious can look at a lot of variables. Conscious mind can only look at so many things. The reticular activating system draws information forward from the subconscious mind to the conscious mind. So it's like, if you imagine you're going to sell your company, and you believe you're going to sell your company, then it's going to be like these 5 pieces of information that the subconscious believes are in alignment with you selling your company. It's going to feed that stuff forward to you. These 10 pieces of information that might make you insecure about selling your company, it's going to kind of like maybe have you look at, but it's not really going to put them in your face. It's not going to say like, you can't do it, you suck, you're an imposter. All that kind of stuff's going to slow down a bit as it starts to feed you information that's going to be in alignment with selling your company. So it's gonna give you evidence as to why. The most easy example of understanding the RAS is to think about like when you buy a new vehicle, like say you buy a Jeep, and you're just going to see Jeeps all over the road because the subconscious is filtering in the Jeeps because you're so focused on the Jeeps. And the beautiful thing with visualization is when you achieve something you visualize, it feels like deja vu, but a different kind. Because you're like, I visualized this. That is cool. Um, and then you know that it affirms that creator in you. It's like, okay, I create my reality. I have free will. I'm not a victim of fate, and all that kind of stuff. Which is, you know, people can believe what they want. There are certain neuroscientists that don't think we have free will. But I like to think we do.
Likewise. This is powerful stuff. I appreciate you explaining it. I have felt it. I have reaped the fruit of visualization quite a bit over the years. Shockingly, as I've gone back and read journals about visualizing things, it's just amazing. Even just a few times visualizing it and writing it out, it's amazing what the brain and the body can do. I feel like
Yeah, it's
a
like the autopilot parts of your body just go on autopilot toward the destination. It wants to fulfill that belief you've made that you're going to sell your company or whatever.
So find the North Star and start going there instead of looking for the ways it could go wrong, I think is kind of the moral of the lesson for me. I think it boils down to, and this is a common thread amongst a lot of podcast interviews we've had here on the Mindfulness Academy podcast. It, it kind of starts with what you want and getting really clear
Yeah, you've got to get
about
clear
what
on
you
what you
want.
want. And that's where like if that's if that's not aligned, the visualization stuff is less effective because you have to feel it and want it and desire it. Otherwise, as you're doing the visualization, the higher part of your consciousness will throw red flags up while you're doing and maybe like self-destructive visualization a little bit. So being able to get clear about what you want intuitively is just as important as the execution of the visualization itself. You can't be misaligned with your heart.
Tell us about this. I am really ravenous for this information around getting clear about what you want. You talked about being kind of instinctive about it, following the heart. I think there is something to a lot of times when I think about, is this something I want? I will think it and I will notice how my body responds. That's one way I take it through kind of a litmus test.
Yeah,
Like, does my throat tighten? Does
intuition.
my stomach flip? Does
Yeah,
my
yep,
heart
yep,
leap with joy?
yep.
Is there more beyond that? And maybe in your own life, or maybe how you coach folks and getting really clear, because that's, if that's not aligned, all the rest of it's a waste of time.
Yeah,
This is important.
yeah. Yeah, it's really important. It's tough.
It
Some
seems like the most common sense thing because people
some
ask it all the time. What do you
it's
want?
so hard to know what you want, really.
What do we want? What do
Um,
other people want for
yeah,
us? And that battle is kind of
yeah.
always at play, it feels like.
Well, I mean, you go to really answer that question, you got to delve in. You do have to delve into metaphysics, and you have to think about like there's different degrees of consciousness. Just like I show the physiological states, like there's different states of consciousness. Um, some of those are pure and clean, like you're looking through crystal clear glass. There are states of consciousness where you are that in tune with your being and your core spirit, your heart, heart, call it whatever you want, your higher self. And then there are periods where you're going through adversity, where trying to understand what you want or get clarity is like looking through, sheets of fog on the most ugly day possible. And you cannot see because your ego, your personal interests that aren't in tune with your spirit are so in your face and even, yeah, are so in your face that you can't know what you want. And you can think you know what you want, but in truth, those things that you think you want aren't in alignment with your heart and will probably lead you down a path of adversity that you're not going to like.
So much to hold on to here and to unpack. I'm wondering if you would talk to us about the correlation between mindfulness and visualization. What is mindfulness to you, and how does that relate to visualization?
Yeah, mindfulness, at its most basic level to me is awareness. It's like being aware of your thoughts, your emotions, the thoughts and emotions of people around you, being aware of your environment, how it impacts you, being present, being here. It's all about being aware. And then once you become aware, like we talked about there, aware of what you want, then you can use visualization to help get past all that fog, all the ego, all the trips and traps and stuff that stops us from actually creating the life of our dreams and maybe creating the life of somebody else's dreams, or what we were raised on, or what we were taught in school, or taught was socially cool, or whatever. There are so many people going after things they don't actually want.
You said something when we spoke recently that visualization is the highest form of prayer.
Mhm.
That is one of the most profound quotes I have heard in quite some time. And I know along your journey, I think you transitioned to a different type of faith. And so maybe there's more of a connection between prayer and mindfulness and visualization. Is that why that is kind of at the forefront for you, or how you see visualization?
Yeah, my co-founder of Dreamfuel feels the same. Um, I've had a storied, I guess, spiritual path or whatever. Um, I was born Jewish and Catholic. My mom's Jewish, my dad's Catholic, which makes me technically Jewish by blood. It's because Judaism is kind of a race. And then they were both disenfranchised with their respective religions, so they raised me kind of agnostic. But we celebrated Christmas and Hanukkah. And then as I got older, I was like, and I didn't feel the presence of God in my life, so to speak. And the meditation teacher, Rich Neat, the fighter pilot guy who cured his PTSD with meditation, he kind of got me into Eastern stuff. And I learned about Buddhism, resonated with me. I learned about Hinduism. I learned about, yeah, just some Eastern yogis, Maharishi. It was TM, Transcendental Meditation. So I learned a lot about Maharishi, who's the guy who was the Beatles guru and helped bring meditation here. TM's great. And I did that for a long time. Really started to explore the idea of oneness and heightened levels of consciousness, cosmic consciousness, what they call it in TM. Achieved some of those states in meditation, which is really cool. Hard to describe. And then met my wife Ashley, who's Catholic, and I had an experience that was kind of neat. Um, Never said this on a podcast. I You're probably not gonna be able to see this. I keep this cup by me though. One of my buddies, his name's Marty Muse. He helped at Slingshot. He was an executive there. He told me I needed to get baptized. You're familiar with the concept of synchronicities, right?
Very much.
So if you're, a conscious creator, you kind of live in a world where you watch the environment pretty closely. And sometimes there are things that happen in the environment that are beyond statistical probability, and you pay attention to those. So I kind of live my life that way. I didn't at that point though. So my buddy said, "You need to be baptized." I said, "Cool. Well, I don't want to be Christian because when I grew up, when I was a kid, I got picked on a lot for being Jewish by Christians, kids. They're not very high consciousness children. So, but I like Marty and I took him seriously. And I said, okay, I'll look into it. So I went to my wife's uncle, who's a priest, and I said, will you baptize me? He said, are you ready to become Catholic? I was like, no, like I don't really have that desire. So he goes, I can't baptize you then. So I was like, oh shit. So I Googled it, and I guess you can baptize yourself. So I read the prayer and I baptized myself in my bathtub. And as I came out of the tub, just came out of the water, I was looking forward, and my wife uses a cup to put salt in the bathtub. And normally it's in this bucket of salt. I never seen it, but it was sitting right in front of me. And you're probably not gonna see this, but as I came out of the tub, the first word that I read was redemption. Brewing company. Because this is the cup for a thing called Brew and Brew from this town called Carmel. So I was like, redemption. It's a word. I've heard that in a Bob Marley tune. So I picked my phone up and I Googled it. I was like, for redemption's God's plan for the salvation of humanity. And I was like, son of a bee. And then then I flipped the cup around and I saw this. It says Three Wise Men Brewing Company.
We have
And I
some
was
very
like,
holy brewing companies in Indiana.
yeah. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. It's like this is a cup of grail and I got this kind of stuff on it. So I went, all right, that's a miracle. That's really low probability. So I'm a math guy, statistician guy, like that's a 1 in a trillion. So it's like, all right. So I started RCIA.
Like the
I
next
thought it was
morning.
I thought it was going to be challenging. Anyway, becoming Catholic ended up being the easiest thing in the world for me, but I think a lot of people it blows their mind. So I think like what, you're Buddhist and you became Catholic, like so like it's like argue with me about some of the things that have happened, like that cup experience. And but anyway, it's been all the any priests I've had have been super conscious, good people that I've been able to and they are into mindfulness and things like that. So I'm always trying. I don't. There's plenty of things I disagree with as it relates to Catholicism, but there's a lot of things that I find a lot of grace in, and a lot of me just wants to bring. I mean, personally, I just see a bunch of different paths to God in these different faiths. And yeah, God definitely gave me a nudge in the direction of Catholicism because that's what I needed. I needed to understand certain things about sacrifice and other things that are tough, that were beyond the spirituality I had. Because for the life I wanted to build, it required certain sacrifices. So I needed to learn about Christ. But that doesn't mean any other paths are invalid, which is one of the things I don't like about Catholicism. Like, I see beauty in all the different faiths that I've looked at and been part of. And I still try and merge the Eastern and the Western together. That's why, apps like Hallow, which is a Catholic meditation app, I'm like, that's right. Like, let's do that. You know, like, how is the rosary not a form of meditation? Why do we gotta be so, why do we gotta be so scared of other faiths?
Yeah, I
Anyway,
definitely
we
would
did a
think
huge
that
tangent.
no, I think it's really important. The intersection of faith and neuroscience and visualization and mindfulness, it's all part of who we are and how we make sense of the world and how we
Yeah.
kind of navigate our way through the world. So I appreciate your honesty and openness about all of that.
Well,
Um,
there was a question before that story is very personal, and I haven't told that before. Like, I mean, I've told it to people in one-on-one, but like, what was the question that got me to tell you about that?
I brought up how you told me that visualization is the highest form of prayer.
Yes,
And
yes. Okay, let's answer that question. So,
yeah, yeah.
so, so that was me trying to tell you I'm Catholic. Um,
Okay,
and and and
noted.
and visualization is actually used a fair amount by saints. Saint Ignatius is the most prominent one that pretty awesome saint. Kind of, I believe he was around during like World War I or something. Just kind of helped people with some really tough stuff. Um, he was in Europe during that period, and I believe I'm not sure. but he has some beautiful visualization practices. Most of them are about dealing with darkness, and they're pretty tough visualization practices. Like, I mean, again, this is just purely for people who are Christian or whatever, but it's like, imagining Christ at the cross, being there through the perspective of his mother, through the perspective of the disciples, visualizations like that, which are like gut wrenching. But there's a Bible verse. I'm glad we're talking about this. I love the science and the heart. I can't be one or the other. Like I have to look at and a lot of the people I coach, like have faith. I have to look at both. But anyway, uh, there's a Bible verse. It's Mark 11:24. Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you've received it and it will be yours. So there's not a darn thing I can think of that helps you believe you've received something more than visualization. Now, most Christians don't know that, but I'm telling you, there's not a thing you can do that helps you believe something more than visualization. So uh,
Take note,
that
listeners.
that's why I believe it's the highest form of prayer. And Anna, my co-founder, who's a cradle Catholic, believes the same. And again, for those of you who are not Catholic or atheist or agnostic, visualization works just as well. So I just happen to have a faith be a big part of my life. So
I appreciate you sharing your experience. And I think that creates space for other people to relate to it or to see how it might be different from them. I think it's really great. One thing that I really like to talk about um, during the podcast is morning routines. And I don't know if you're a morning person. Are you? Yes? No?
not historically, but I've had to become one, obviously.
There was a begrudging tone to that, Kevin. I'm wondering if you have a morning routine that might include something as it relates to mindfulness. And maybe it's in the morning, maybe it's in the evening, maybe it's midday or throughout the day, whatever it might be. But people are really interested in morning routines, as you know. What's one thing that you use pretty consistently that helps you?
I've had a lot of morning routines across a long time, and they change and update and morph as I climb the ladder of consciousness, so to speak. So at this time, and I could talk to you about plenty in the past, my morning routine typically consists of Qigong, which is just an Eastern practice it's an energy practice. Beautiful, awesome, great for waking up your body and the neuronal connections between your organs and your, limbs and your brain. So I do Qigong. That's normally about 15 minutes. And then there is a visualization practice that I do of connecting with Earth and connecting with God. And that's what I do in between. And feels wonderful. And then I transition from there into uh, deep, like theta-like meditation. And then at the end of that meditation, there's a few for those who maybe aren't religious or spiritual, cognitive reframes I do. But for me, they are prayerful, and I affirm where I'm going and why I'm going there, and I give thanksgiving for the help, and I also affirm that I humble myself and I let God know that I need God's help and that I'm not 100% certain that everything I'm doing is in alignment with my heart, and that I need God's help to stay there, stay aligned. That's the morning practice I do now. That takes about an hour, but it tends to center me through the day.
I like that quite a bit. One thing that Aaron Slater had told me at one point is as I visualize and set intentions, that I keep as kind of a caveat at the end of what I say, or something better. And there's a bit of humility in that because maybe I don't see the full picture. And I
Probably
really
don't.
like that. Yeah, I think it's a beautiful thing. I'm wondering here as we kind of get near the end, if you wouldn't mind sharing a visualization practice with us.
Explain it or do it.
Lead us through it.
Okay. I'll just do this intuitively. Normally I plan and rehearse visualization, so I kind of write down. But yeah, let's just go off the cuff.
All
Um,
right.
how about we just do end of 24, things are going really well.
Love it.
All right. Let's see here. So for your listeners, I want you to think of a few things you want to achieve in 2024, maybe some of your New Year's resolutions or something like that, and write them down. So I'll give you
Okay.
a minute to do that.
Sure.
Amy, maybe you can write a few things down. They can be personal or professional, doesn't matter. And I want you to write down 2 or 3 ways you want to feel at the end of the year.
Okay.
They can be related to those things you achieved or not. But
Okay.
how do you want to feel at the end of the year? I want you to write down something you've overcome, a dragon, something you're scared of that you have to face this year that you overcame.
Dragon. Okay.
And we call them dragons in the hero's journey. So my
Mm,
company's theme is every quarter is a hero's journey, so we use Joseph Campbell stuff. So
love this
a
stuff.
dragon you slay, like something you have to face this year and overcome. And maybe some behaviors you leaned in on that were very important. It's kind of like the last thing.
Okay. Give me some examples of behaviors you might lean in on.
Yeah, I mean, if you were a salesperson, I made my 100 calls every day, you know.
Okay. Okay.
So
I got you.
it could be like, any behaviors, things you like. I did a podcast every week or every month or whatever, like
Okay.
things that are like, not outcomes related, but like process related. So process
Gotcha.
stuff, behavior stuff
Mm-hmm.
that you kind of need to do in the back of your head to achieve the things you want. All right, we'll do this. So we always start a visualization off with a little bit of deep breathing.
Okay.
We're going to do, in this case, 15 deep breaths. And on the 15th, I want you to breathe out all the way, kind of like Wim Hof breathing. I want you to just hold your breath with no air for just a little bit. Go ahead and put your right hand on your stomach and your left hand on your chest. I want you to breathe in deep enough that it pushes both hands out. So breathe into your stomach deep. These are big breaths through your mouth, not through your nose. So, and then just let the air rebound out. Those are the breaths we're going to take, right?
Okay.
So, okay. So I'll probably need at least 10 minutes to do this. All right.
All right. Let's do it.
All right. So listeners, Amy, go ahead and close your eyes. I want you to go ahead and relax your shoulders, places we hear your tension, your stomach. Relax your jaw. Just do a quick scan of your body for any other areas of tension and let them relax and release. We're going to do 15 deep breaths like I was showing on my count. Starting now, take a deep breath in, 15, let it out. 14, let it out. Deep breath, 13, release. 12, release. 11, let go. That's a countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, ignition 3, clear for launch 2, 1, blast off. Breathe in all the way. Breathe out all the way. I don't want you to breathe in again. I want you to hold your breath with no air and just relax for a few seconds. Might feel a little tingly. That's all right. It's just some positive neurotransmitters. All right, keep your eyes closed. I want you to go ahead and smile and resume normal breathing. So go ahead and breathe. Okay, I want you to go ahead and take a seat in your imagination, take a seat in your subconscious mind. Remember that your imagination is limitless. You can easily imagine 2024 being an awesome year of growth for you, and you're excited for it. And remember that the things that we imagine do have a high probability of happening because we are tuning our subconscious mind, which is incredibly powerful, to go after the things that we visualize and help us make decisions that are in alignment with our desires, our dreams, and the outcomes that we want, both in the present with process and then the outcomes at the end. So there you are in your imagination, buckled in, strapped in, ready to go. All of a sudden, you're pushing forward in time, you're taking off forward in time, pushing forward in time, forward in time, slipping through the vast wormhole of time all the way to the end of 2024. And there you are. You're lying in bed, you're just waking up, and your body feels so relaxed, so at ease, so calm. You can feel the sun, the morning sun coming through the window. You can feel the sunlight on your skin. You slowly open your eyes and you look out the window and you can see snow falling. You close your eyes again, laying in bed, feeling at ease, feeling comfortable. And for a moment, you recognize that you feel much more lighthearted, much more comfortable, much more at ease than you did at the beginning of the year. A lot of those anxieties and uncertainties ended up not happening. And in fact, the year went your way in so many amazing ways. And for a moment, as you lie there in bed, you think about the things that you achieved in 2024. Go ahead and think about some of the things you achieved, the remarkable outcomes that you created in 2024. As your mind reels through those outcomes and the amazing celebrations and gratitude that you had around achieving those things, your mind starts to recall some of the important behaviors that you undertook throughout 2024 to achieve these outcomes. Go ahead and think about those behaviors, those difficult, challenging things that you did, those habits you did to make sure you achieved what you wanted in the year. And as your brain thinks about those behaviors that you did, you recall that one dragon, that one big obstacle that you managed to get through in 2024. Ended up that that dragon was just a gecko with a lighter. Wasn't as scary as you thought at the beginning of the year. You pushed through that adversity and you got it done. And it feels so good. And as you lay there thinking about what you overcame in 2024, your body starts to well up with all the emotion and joy of a year well lived. Think about how you're feeling right now after achieving these things, after overcoming this dragon, the discipline, the behaviors you did to win. You start to feel that sense of relief. The year's over and you did it. And that satisfaction of a job well done. It's like stepping into a warm hot tub. Your body releases and relaxes and lets go. And as you're enjoying those feelings of achievement, you start to feel gratitude come in for all the people who helped you along the way, all the amazing people events and circumstances that got you to a successful year. As you feel that gratitude, you start to think about 2025 and what you're going to do in 2025 and how 2025 is going to be even better than 2024. And in that note of excitement, you reach over to your right and you grab your glass of water. You can feel the condensation on the glass as you bring it to your mouth and take a sip. You feel the peace in your room, the peace in your heart. And you take a big breath in. Go ahead and take a deep breath in. Breathe out. Slowly reel yourself back to this present moment at the beginning of 2024 and open your eyes.
Oh, nice. Thank you so much for doing that.
Sure. Impromptu. We do much more amazing and sophisticated visualizations when we have a little bit of time to interview our clients. But that was just a generic one for anyone.
Yeah, I like that. That's good to note that there's customization based on the client
Oh
needs,
yeah.
but this is good for a lot of folks. I like that it is more general. Um, Here towards the end, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit more um, about Dreamfuel, how folks can learn more about you, kind of what a normal first step might be, and if there are any other things that you want to kind of draw our attention to.
Yeah, sure. Dreamfuel is a team of about 10 mental performance coaches right now. Most of them have achieved pretty miraculous things in their lives, sold companies, things like that. They also are either pursuing or have advanced degrees in either positive or performance psychology, neuroscience, and things like that. And normally, our process is to start with a demo coaching session. So we cover the cost of that. You get a chance to meet the coach who we think would work best with you. And they might bring you through something like we just did, like this visualization we just did, but customized for you. Imagine selling your company or something like that. And then if we get through that, we then start a program of coaching and learning those 52 tools of mental performance. And those turn into some of the greatest relationships that we've ever had with our clients. It's beautiful having a mental performance coach you work with. And Dreamfuel is part software and part coaching. We have a software that measures mental performance, and it's a wonderful thing. We work with both individuals and their teams, so we can work with just an individual, or once they're like, oh, this would be awesome, my team knew this stuff, then we work with their team. So it's kind of like a 1-2 thing. And you just to learn more, just go to dreamfuel.com. I'm Kevin Bailey, Kevin James Bailey on LinkedIn. If you want to connect with me there, that's where I share a lot of this stuff. And yeah, I just hope that they found this conversation to be interesting and helpful, and just love getting a chance to wake people up to some of these tools.
It's been absolutely wonderful. One tool, if you have just 60 seconds, I would greatly appreciate it. I would love to share the Glowy daily reflection practice with you,
Sure.
and you can show us maybe what's inside your mind, the things that are
Yeah.
percolating inside you.
Okay.
Glowy stands for, it's an acronym for gratefulness, lift up, which we've talked a lot about today. So it's kind of a prayer, what we observe, what our wholesome intention is, and the you are, which is what you already practice, sending
Okay.
yourself off with a positive affirmation. So, what's something you're grateful for, Kevin?
My co-founder, Anna, she's amazing. She's an integrator. She's just doing a fantastic job.
What's something you would lift up for yourself or someone else?
This is a burden I would take off their shoulders, or
Maybe it's
lifting.
something that needs resources, time, money,
Oh,
energy.
I'm very committed to lifting up my wife and helping her raise our family of numerous children.
You said you're Catholic, right?
Yeah.
What do you observe?
I observe a really cool person. I'm grateful for this podcast, Amy. It's been fun to talk with you.
Feel the same. What is your wholesome intention? Could be big, could be just for this moment, could be for later today.
We've, as a company, been working with technology executives and founders for a long time. And I just want us to be the best in the world at working with that specific group of people who's under a lot of pressure. And I believe our programs are best in class, and I want to continue that. I want to be known as a world-class mental performance organization over the next coming decades, as it relates to mental performance for specifically for founders and executives at high growth companies. I think we're there, but like I know we got so much further to go. And we're just, yeah,
Just getting started.
yeah.
Yeah. What about you are? So sometimes I'll even give myself a little hug or just turn it inward and just say, Amy, you are. And so Kevin, you are your own positive affirmation. Practicing what you preach.
Obviously, I told you in the my morning prayer, I give myself a hint of humility every day because I know how important it is. But I'll take the other side of the coin, the duality of this for this one. And my young daughter, my youngest daughter, Amelia, when she was asked, we went on a hike and we had to yell how we felt about ourselves. I was with another mindfulness practitioner in this like tunnel of rocks and mountains, and she goes, "I'm great," like Tony the Tiger. So I'm great.
I love that. Thank you for the visual too. That's so wonderful. Oh my goodness, Kevin, it's been a delight. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you so
Yeah,
much. From my
happy
heart
to.
to yours, may you live with ease.
Thank you. Ditto. Same for you, Amy.
This is your host, Amy Morgan, signing off.